Most of us live inside a system we never built, but they shape every part of our lives. Today I'm unpacking the hidden architecture of white supremacy and its direct impact on black communities. I'll trace this system from its colonial foundation to today's headlines, showing how policies, culture, and even pop culture reinforce it. If you're interested in deep dives on history and nerd culture, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Let me get into it.
Defining white supremacy.
Before I dive into the historical details, let me clarify what I mean by white supremacy. Many people say I'm not a white supremacist. I've got black friends, or I voted for a black candidate. But white supremacy isn't just a loud, torch-bearing neo-Nazi you might think of. In reality, it exists on a spectrum.
White extremists.
These are people who openly parade Nazi flags and chant racist slogans. A modern example is the August 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where self-identified neo-Nazi and Klan members gathered to decry black progress. That day ended in violent clashes and a fatal car attack when a white supremacist drove into a crowd of counter-protesters.
Covert white supremacy.
These folks never wear Klan robes or carry torches. Instead, they champion school choice initiatives, framing them as giving families freedom while knowing that vouchers and charter expansions divert funds from underfunded public schools in majority black neighborhoods. They'll cloak this as improving education, ignoring how it exacerbates existing disparities. In other words, they push policies under the guise of common sense, while those measured entrenched racial and economic segregation. Both extremes share a goal: to preserve white power and exclude black people from social, economic, and political influence. Understanding this spectrum is the first step towards dismantling the system.
Historic foundation.
It starts in the colonial era, when black people were legally defined as property, a precedent for systematic dehumanization that involved rather than ended with the formal abolition of slavery. As early as 1662, Virginia passed a law enshrining partis sequitur ventrum, which decreed that any child born to an enslaved mother would also be enslaved, explicitly tying a person's status to race and ensuring that perpetual bondage of black families. By 1705, the Virginia House of Burgesses consolidated numerous statuses into the Virginia slave codes, detailing everything from restrictions on black movements to severe punishment for disobedience. Under these codes, black people were forbidden from owning property, moving freely without a white escort, or assembling in groups. White colonists were empowered to hunt, capture, and kill any black person who tried to escape, resisting bondage, with bounties often referred for runaways. In the early 1800s, national legislation further tightened control. A Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 and its stronger 1850 revision required that any black person, free or enslaved, who fled to a free state could be apprehended and returned to slavery. These laws criminalized escape itself and discouraged allies from intervening under threat of heavy fines. During the first half of the 19th century, scientific racism provided a veneer of legitimacy to these legal restraints. In 1851, Dr. Samuel A. Cartwright of Louisiana coined drapetomania, claiming that the only reason an enslaved person would flee captivity was because they suffered from mental illness rather than a rational desire for freedom. He even prescribed whipping as a cure, pathologizing resistance to bondage as a treatable disorder. Then came Jim Crow. Beginning in the late 19th century, Southern states passed black codes that criminalized everyday black life. Vagrancy, loitering, labor contracts became criminal offenses unique to black people, guaranteeing a steady supply of convict labor for white landowners and industries. Legal segregation followed in 1896 as Plessy v. Ferguson, mandating separate but equal facilities that were anything but equal. Schools, transportation, and public places were intentionally underfunded for black communities. By understanding how laws from Paratus to drapetomania were crafted specifically to dehumanize black people, you can see that white supremacy was never an accident. It was maliciously written in statutes, medical journals, and court rulings to protect a system of racial dominance.
Rape, hazing, and induction
into whiteness.
White supremacy didn't just target black people, it created a hierarchy that marginalized groups were coerced into climbing or fighting it. Once accepted as white, each group often adopted anti-black attitudes to prove their loyalty. Irish immigrants, the violent backlash, job riots, immigrant tenement, and school segregation, many Irish sought acceptance by aligning with white supremacy. In the 1863 New York draft riots, Irish mob attacked black neighborhoods, burning homes and lynching black residents to reinforce their own status above black people. Over time, Irish laborers joined segregated unions that excluded black workers and voted for segregationist politicians to cement their white status. Italian immigrants, facing nativist hostility and labeled unassailable. In cities like New York and Chicago, many Italian laborers refused to work alongside black laborers, joined racially exclusive unions, and supported Jim Crow norm. In southern Texas, for instance, Italian employees in textile mills insisted on segregated workspaces and backed laws enforcing black disenfranchisement. Japanese Americans, though they themselves endured internment, Japanese Americans often reinforced local color lines after release. In part of the Pacific Northwest, especially Seattle, Japanese American homeowners signed restrictive covenants to bar black families from moving into their new neighborhoods. Japanese American owned businesses frequently refused to hire black employees, and community organizations sometimes opposed local civil rights initiatives aimed to desegregating schools and public places. Mexican origin communities facing segregation in schools, expulsion, and racially motivated violence. Mexican origin activists formed LULAC to argue in court that Mexicans were legally white. Once courts desegregated facilities, many Mexican Americans still distanced themselves from black allies. In Texas and California, some Mexican-run businesses refused service to black patrons, seeking to preserve white privilege. But in the civil rights movement gained momentum, many LULAC chapters hesitated to join black-led protests, fearing that solidarity might jeopardize their own legal status as white. This dynamic, a communal hazing by pathway into whiteness, shows that white was constructed to fracture solidarity between black people and other racial minorities. Today, the system still allows other racial groups to succeed, but often at the expense of keeping black Americans as a permanent underclass. Many non-black minority-owned businesses cluster in predominantly black neighborhoods because capital and opportunity remain scarce elsewhere.